Recognizing when it's time to let go, there comes a point in every person's journey where growth demands separation. It doesn't mean you hate them. It doesn't mean you think you're better. It simply means you've reached a stage of awareness where peace becomes more valuable than people and purpose becomes more important than proximity. You begin to realize that not everyone who started with you is meant to finish with you, and holding on too tightly to what no longer serves you can cost you the future you were created for. Recognizing when it's time to let go is not an act of cruelty, it's an act of clarity. It's when your spirit starts whispering what your mind tries to ignore. This connection is no longer aligned. Maybe it once was. Maybe they helped you in a season. Maybe you shared moments of laughter, struggle, or even love. But every relationship has a purpose, and when that purpose expires, it begins to produce pain. The mistake many people make is trying to resurrect something God has already released. They keep watering dead soil, wondering why nothing grows. You see, holding on to the wrong person can block the right one. Staying in the wrong environment can suffocate your evolution. When God wants to elevate you, He often removes what's keeping you grounded. But the human heart resists that. We fear the empty space that letting go creates. We confuse loneliness with loss, and we start convincing ourselves that comfort is better than change. But comfort kills growth. You can't step into your next season if your hands are still clinging to your last one. The first sign it's time to let go is when your peace begins to fade. When conversations that once brought joy now bring exhaustion. When presence feels heavy instead of healing. When you start to shrink who you are to fit the version of yourself they can tolerate. You were never meant to dim your light so someone else could feel comfortable in your shadow. When peace leaves the room, that's not just emotional, that's spiritual direction. That's your soul saying, this is not your place anymore. Another sign is when there's no longer mutual growth. Healthy connections are like mirrors. They reflect strength, honesty, and shared accountability. But when you're the only one growing, you'll start feeling guilty for your own progress. They'll say you've changed, and they'll mean it like an insult. But change is the evidence of life. If someone loved you only when you were broken, it means they were attached to your weakness, not your worth. You can't keep shrinking yourself to be relatable to people who are allergic to your evolution. It's also time to let go when you keep replaying pain instead of learning from it. Some people aren't in your life to stay. They came to teach you something. Maybe it was self-respect. Maybe it was discernment. Maybe it was how to set boundaries. But once the lesson is learned, the relationship often ends. Stop reopening emotional wounds trying to understand why they left. Some exits are protection, not punishment. God heard conversations you didn't, saw motives you couldn't, and protected you from pain you didn't deserve. Letting go also becomes necessary when dependency replaces destiny. When you start believing you can't function without their validation, when your happiness depends on their presence, you've handed over power that was never meant to be given away. That's not love, that's bondage. True love empowers you to grow, not fear abandonment. You can care deeply for someone and still release them if the connection keeps you from becoming who God created you to be. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And sometimes the person you need to let go of isn't someone else, it's an older version of yourself. The you that settled, the you that tolerated disrespect, the you that stayed silent to keep peace, the you that feared rejection more than regret. Every season of growth requires a new identity. You can't move into the promised land thinking like a prisoner. You can't step into abundance thinking with a scarcity mindset. You must be willing to release the version of you that survived so you can embrace the one that's ready to thrive. Letting go doesn't always happen in one moment. It's a process of unlearning attachment and relearning alignment. It's realizing that you can bless people from a distance and forgive them without returning to them. It's understanding that closure doesn't come from their apology, it comes from your acceptance. The apology you're waiting for might never come, but the peace you're praying for will when you finally stop waiting for what's already over. You must also learn to recognize the divine disruptions in your life. Sometimes what looks like rejection is actually redirection. The doors that closed weren't meant to keep you out, they were meant to protect what's within you. When you start seeing endings as part of your elevation, you stop fighting God's process. You begin to trust that every removal makes room for something better. The friendships that fade, the relationships that dissolve, the opportunities that fall apart, all of them are preparing you for alignment you can't yet see. To truly let go, you must stop needing everyone to understand your decision. Some people will call it arrogance, others will call it selfishness. but it's actually stewardship of your time, your mind, and your energy. You have to reach a place where peace becomes non-negotiable. You can love people deeply and still choose yourself. You can pray for them and still walk away. You can be kind and still have boundaries. That's maturity, loving without losing yourself. And when you finally release what no longer belongs, a strange thing happens. Your spirit starts to breathe again. Clarity returns. Creativity returns. Energy returns. It's like removing weights from your soul. Because the truth is, holding on takes more strength than letting go, but letting go gives more life than holding on ever could. Letting go is not the end, it's the beginning of freedom. It's the space where your purpose can finally breathe. It's the clearing where new connections, opportunities, and blessings can find you. When you let go of what's not meant for you, you make room for what is. And what's meant for you will never require you to lose your peace, to keep it. So if your heart feels heavy, if your peace feels distant, if you're forcing what used to flow, that's your signal. It's time. Let them go with love. Let them go with gratitude. Let them go with grace. Because you're not losing anything, you're making space for everything that's meant to come next. Detaching with grace and growth. There comes a moment in every person's journey when you must learn to let go, not out of bitterness, not out of pride, but out of spiritual wisdom. Detachment is not about abandoning people or running away from responsibility. It's about releasing what no longer aligns with your divine purpose. You see, when you try to carry everyone with you into your next season, you end up slowing down the very process God is trying to accelerate. Detachment is not rejection, it's redirection. It's the wisdom to know that not every relationship, friendship, or connection is meant to last forever. Some were there to teach you a lesson, some to test your strength, and a few to push you closer to your destiny. Detaching with grace means you stop fighting for places where your spirit no longer grows. It means you stop begging for love, validation, or attention from those who have already made peace with misunderstanding you. You cannot force alignment. You cannot convince someone to see your value when they've already decided to overlook it. The more you try, the more you drain your spiritual energy, and the less room you leave for the people and opportunities that are actually meant for you. Growth demands space, and to make that space, you must learn to release what no longer belongs. Graceful detachment begins in the heart. It's when you no longer allow resentment to live rent-free in your soul. You forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you refuse to let anger chain you to the past. You rise above the drama, the gossip, the noise, and the unnecessary battles. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already chosen to misunderstand your intentions. Silence becomes your strategy, peace becomes your weapon, and stillness becomes your strength. You realize that real power is not in proving your worth, it's in knowing it and walking in it without apology. Many people struggle to detach because they confuse letting go with giving up. But giving up means you've lost hope. Letting go means you've found wisdom. You're no longer chasing closure because you've learned that peace is the only closure you need. You're no longer demanding explanations because you've discovered that sometimes God removes people without announcement for your protection, not your punishment. When you start trusting that divine pruning always precedes divine promotion, detachment stops feeling like loss. It starts feeling like preparation. Detachment with growth also means taking accountability for your part in what you allowed. You recognize that your peace was too often sacrificed for the sake of keeping others comfortable. You start realizing that you were shrinking yourself to fit inside rooms that were never meant for your expansion, so you stop apologizing for your evolution. You stop dimming your light just to make others feel less insecure in your glow. The people who are truly meant to walk with you will celebrate your growth, not compete with it. They'll correct you with love, not criticize you with envy. And when you detach with grace, you begin to attract relationships that are built on respect, purpose, and authenticity, not on convenience or control. Letting go gracefully also means you learn to trust the timing of God. You understand that silence is not absence. When something or someone exits your life, it's not a vacuum, it's a clearing. It's making room for divine substitution. You stop worrying about who left because you know the one who remains never forsakes. And when your heart aches because it will, you remind yourself that pain is often the birthplace of power. Every ending is a seed for a new beginning. Detachment is not the death of connection, it's the rebirth of alignment. Now here's the truth. Growth hurts. Because growth separates you from people who choose comfort over calling. When you start walking by faith, you'll look around and realize not everyone who started with you is still standing beside you, and that's okay. The path to purpose is narrow. It cannot hold the weight of every opinion, every distraction, every attachment. So instead of asking, why did they leave me? Start asking, why am I still holding on? God cannot pour a new anointing into a heart that's still occupied by old emotions. You must empty yourself of the unnecessary to receive what's next. Detachment with grace also means you stop personalizing everything. Everyone is fighting their own unseen battles. People's reactions, their silence, their distance, it's rarely about you. It's about where they are in their own growth process. When you take things less personally, you become emotionally free. You realize that peace is not dependent on how others treat you, but on how you choose to respond. Emotional maturity is when you stop expecting people to act right and start deciding to stay right regardless of what they do. You don't need revenge. You need release. You don't need validation. You need vision. You don't need everyone's approval. You need alignment with your assignment. The most powerful form of detachment is gratitude. Instead of resenting what didn't work out, you start thanking God for protecting you from what you couldn't see. You look back not with bitterness, but with understanding. You recognize that every disappointment was divine direction. Every heartbreak was hidden help. Every closed door was a blessing in disguise. When gratitude enters the heart, bitterness has no room to grow. And when you're thankful for what was, you become fully ready for what's to come. So, let your heart rest. You're not behind. You're not losing. You're simply being refined. Detachment doesn't mean you stop loving people. It means you start loving yourself enough to stop being drained. It's not about cutting everyone off. It's about cutting off the energy that keeps you stuck. You'll know you've detached with grace when you can wish someone well and mean it, even if they never return. That's real growth when peace becomes more important than proving a point. You see, the person who learns to detach without losing compassion becomes unshakable. They become grounded in purpose, anchored in faith, and guided by wisdom. They no longer chase what's temporary because they've learned to trust what's eternal. And when you reach that point, you stop being reactive and start being radiant. You walk lighter, you speak softer. You think clearer, you love deeper because your love is now rooted in freedom, not fear. So, detach, but do it with grace. Detach from comparison, from resentment, from expectations that keep breaking your peace. Detach not to escape people, but to elevate yourself. Because when you detach from what drains you, you make room for what defines you. You make space for clarity, creativity, and divine flow. You stop chasing what's fading and start walking toward what's growing. That's how you move from surviving to thriving. That's how you grow without bitterness. That's how you detach and still shine, mastering self-focus and discipline. When you decide to truly focus on yourself, you step into one of the most powerful seasons of your life. Because focus is not just about attention, it's about intention. It's the discipline of directing your mind, your time, and your energy toward what truly matters. Most people don't fail because they lack potential. They fail because they lack focus. They start everything but finish nothing. They chase distractions dressed as opportunities. But when you master self-focus, you stop scattering your energy and start multiplying your impact. Discipline turns dreams into decisions, and decisions into destiny. Self-focus begins with clarity. You must know what you're building, why you're building it, and who you're becoming in the process. Without clarity, discipline feels like punishment. But when your purpose is clear, discipline becomes freedom. Because now, every no to distraction becomes a yes to destiny. You no longer feel guilty for saying no to things that don't serve your vision. You stop explaining why you're unavailable for gossip, laziness, or negativity. You understand that protecting your focus is not selfish, it's sacred. It's how you honor the assignment God placed in your hands. Discipline is the bridge between your potential and your purpose. It's what separates those who wish from those who win. Every day, you're either feeding your focus or feeding your distractions. The difference between success and stagnation lies in your daily habits. You can't pray for greatness and keep practicing mediocrity. You can't ask for elevation and still entertain environments that pull you down. Real discipline requires consistency, and consistency doesn't depend on motivation, it depends on commitment. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you standing when the excitement fades. Mastering self-focus means you stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop saying, "I'll start when," and start saying, "I'll start now." Because the truth is, there will never be a perfect time, only the time you decide to act. Discipline means showing up even when you don't feel like it. It means doing what you said you'd do long after the mood you set it in has left. When you commit to your goals, your emotions lose their control over your actions. You start living by principles, not feelings. You stop being driven by moods and start being led by mission. Now understand this, focus and isolation often travel together. When God is preparing you for something great, He'll separate you from the noise. You'll feel misunderstood. You'll feel distant. You'll even question why certain people disappeared or why certain doors closed. But it's not punishment, it's preparation. God isolates before He elevates. Because before He can trust you with more, He must see if you can stay faithful with less. That quiet season where nobody claps, nobody notices, nobody validates, that's where your discipline is tested. Can you stay consistent when no one's watching? Can you work in silence without needing recognition? Because the person who can stay faithful in the dark is the one God promotes in the light. To master focus, you must also master your environment. You can't stay focused in a space filled with constant distraction. You must build an atmosphere that supports your goals. Sometimes that means turning off your phone, stepping away from social media, or cutting back time with people who drain your drive. You must learn to guard your mind like a treasure chest because that's what it is. What you feed it determines your future. Feed it negativity and you'll live in doubt. Feed it wisdom, vision, and truth and you'll walk in purpose. Discipline your environment and your environment will discipline you. Another secret to mastering self-focus is managing your energy, not just your time. Time is limited, but energy is renewable. You can't pour from an empty cup, so you must learn to recharge spiritually, mentally, and physically. That means resting without guilt, praying without rush, and resetting without apology. Rest is not laziness, it's stewardship. You can't run your race on burnout. Even God rested after creating the world. If the Creator took a break, so should the creation. Because when your energy is aligned with your purpose, every action becomes powerful. Every step you take carries divine force. Now let's talk about self-discipline in decision-making. Every time you make a choice, you either strengthen or weaken your future. Discipline is not about restriction, it's about alignment. It's saying no to what feels good now so you can say yes to what's great later. It's learning to delay gratification because you understand that purpose always pays, but not always immediately. The undisciplined person wants results without responsibility. The disciplined person knows that responsibility produces results. When you master your choices, you master your life. Every small decision compounds, just like every small distraction destroys. Success is not built in a day, it's built daily. One of the greatest enemies of focus is comparison. When you're constantly looking at what others are doing, you lose sight of what God is doing through you. You start doubting your timing, your talent, and your trajectory. But hear this, your journey is customized. You're not late, you're not behind, you're being prepared. Discipline is trusting God's pace, even when you don't understand it. It's showing up in faith, knowing that every seed you plant in private will bear fruit in public if you don't quit. Comparison kills focus because it makes you chase approval instead of purpose. But when you stay in your lane, your race becomes peaceful. You stop competing and you start creating. True focus also requires emotional discipline. You cannot control what happens around you, but you can control what happens within you. Stop reacting to every provocation. Stop letting emotions dictate your direction. Every time you respond in anger, distraction wins. But when you stay calm, clarity reigns. Emotional discipline means you don't let external chaos destroy your internal peace. You learn to pause before responding, to pray before deciding, and to act from purpose, not pressure. That's how kings and queens operate, with self-mastery, not self-doubt. And lastly, mastering focus means surrendering your outcome to God. You do your part with excellence and leave the rest to divine timing. Discipline without surrender leads to anxiety. But discipline with faith leads to peace. Because when you trust that God will multiply your effort, you stop rushing and start resting in assurance. You no longer chase results, you attract them through obedience. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the next step in faith. That's focus. That's discipline. That's divine order. So focus on yourself, not selfishly, but strategically. Because the more you master yourself, the more valuable you become to the world around you. You can't pour wisdom from a distracted mind. You can't lead with power from an undisciplined life. Focus is your superpower. Discipline is your armor. And together, they make you unstoppable. When your mind is fixed, your heart is steady, and your purpose is clear, no storm, no distraction, and no delay can shake your destiny. Stay focused, stay disciplined, stay faithful. Because the world doesn't change when you wish it changes, when you work with intention and walk with purpose. Building inner strength through faith and patience. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes strength is silent. It's the quiet confidence that says, I know who walks with me. Building inner strength through faith and patience is about becoming unshakable in spirit, even when everything around you is uncertain. It's about learning that true power doesn't come from controlling circumstances. It comes from trusting God in the middle of them. Because faith without patience becomes frustration, and patience without faith becomes passivity. But when you walk with both, you develop a resilience that no storm can break. Inner strength begins where human effort ends. There comes a point in life where your willpower is not enough, your knowledge runs out, and your resources fail. That's where faith steps in. Faith says, even when I can't see the way, I still know the way maker. It's not blindness, it's divine sight. It's believing that the unseen hand of God is moving, even when nothing around you looks like progress. And patience is what keeps that faith alive. Patience is the ability to wait without wavering, to trust without rushing, and to keep standing when the blessing seems delayed. Patience is not weakness, it's wisdom. Because impatience has destroyed more dreams than failure ever could. When you build inner strength, you stop letting temporary pain make permanent decisions. You understand that pressure is part of purpose. Diamonds are made under pressure, and so are destinies. Every time you go through a trial and choose faith over fear, your spirit grows stronger. Every time you wait with grace instead of frustration, your character becomes more refined. Inner strength is not about pretending life is easy. It's about walking through difficulty with peace, because faith gives you perspective. It reminds you that even in delay, God is not denying you. He's developing you. Faith and patience work together like roots and fruit. Faith is what you plant, patience is how you water, and manifestation is what grows. You can't expect the fruit if you won't nurture the root. Many people plant seeds of faith but dig them up too early because they don't see instant results. But the truth is, everything powerful takes time. Trees don't grow overnight, muscles don't build in a day, and spiritual maturity doesn't happen without seasons of waiting. Patience teaches you to respect the process. Because God doesn't just prepare blessings for you, He prepares you for the blessing. And sometimes that preparation looks like pruning. He removes what can't go with you to where you're going. The pain of pruning is proof that promotion is near. Inner strength also means trusting that God's timing is perfect, even when it disrupts your plans. We live in a world obsessed with instant gratification, fast results, fast success, fast validation. But divine timing doesn't operate on human impatience. God's calendar doesn't bend to your clock. If He's delaying something, it's not denial, it's protection. You may think you're ready, but He knows what you're not yet equipped to handle. Patience allows grace to do its work in silence. Because when you rush the process, you end up with half-developed blessings. But when you wait with faith, you receive promises that last. Building inner strength also requires letting go of control. The strongest people are not those who have power over everything. They're the ones who can surrender everything. Surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. It's saying, God, I trust your plan more than my preference. When you live by faith, you no longer need to manipulate outcomes. You simply obey, prepare, and trust. That's where peace lives. Because anxiety is the symptom of misplaced control. You worry when you try to carry what God never asked you to. But when you hand Him the weight, you regain your freedom. The moment you release control, you receive clarity. Faith and patience don't remove challenges, they redefine them. You stop seeing obstacles as punishments and start seeing them as preparation. Every difficulty becomes a classroom for your destiny. You learn to handle rejection with grace, betrayal with forgiveness, and delay with dignity. You realize that every closed door protects you from something that would have derailed your purpose. Every detour becomes divine direction. You stop asking, why me? And start saying, what is this teaching me? Because inner strength is not about avoiding pain, it's about extracting purpose from it. Patience teaches you to rest while you wait, not worry while you wait. Most people spend the waiting season frustrated, doubting, comparing, and complaining. But when your faith matures, you wait differently. You wait with expectation. You wait with preparation. You wait knowing that the same God who promised is faithful to perform. So you stay in motion even in the waiting room. You don't stop sowing just because you don't see the harvest yet. You don't stop working just because the reward hasn't arrived. You don't stop believing because the evidence hasn't shown up. Faith doesn't look at facts, it looks at truth. And the truth is, God never fails. Building inner strength through faith also means forgiving quickly, because bitterness weakens the spirit. You can't walk in power while carrying poison. Unforgiveness drains your energy and blocks your progress. When you forgive, you free yourself. You shift your focus from the pain to the purpose. You start seeing how every experience, even the painful ones, shaped your spiritual muscles. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every disappointment built endurance. Every heartbreak deepened your empathy. You become stronger, not in spite of your pain, but because of it. That's faith at work, transforming wounds into wisdom. Another layer of inner strength is emotional stability. Faith doesn't mean you won't feel emotions. It means emotions won't control you. You can cry, but you don't quit. You can stumble, but you don't stop. Patience gives you emotional balance. It keeps you calm when the world is chaotic. It helps you respond with wisdom instead of reaction. Because maturity is not measured by how loud you shout in victory, but by how silent you remain in uncertainty. True strength is stillness in the storm. It's the power to remain centered while everything around you shifts. And finally, faith and patience teach you gratitude in the process. When you can thank God in the middle of the test, you've already passed it. Gratitude is what transforms waiting into worship. It shifts your focus from what's missing to what's working. You begin to realize how far you've already come, how much grace you've already received, and how blessed you already are. Gratitude is fuel for faith. Because when you remember God's past faithfulness, you gain confidence for His future promises. That's the rhythm of inner strength, faith that believes, patience that waits, and gratitude that endures. Building inner strength through faith and patience is the secret to spiritual maturity. It's how you move from fragile to fortified. You stop being tossed by emotions, opinions, and delays. You become anchored not in circumstance, but in conviction. The storms still come, but now you stand taller. The winds still blow, but now you bend, not break. Because faith made you flexible, and patience made you powerful. When your soul is anchored in faith and your heart grounded in patience, nothing outside of you can defeat what's inside of you. That's the essence of divine resilience, standing firm, walking steady, and trusting deeply, knowing that what's for you will never miss you, and what misses you was never meant for you. Becoming untouchable through inner peace and purpose. There comes a moment in your life when you stop chasing validation, stop explaining yourself, and stop begging to be understood. That moment is the beginning of peace, not the peace that depends on circumstance, but the kind that comes from alignment with divine purpose. When you understand who you are and what you're called to do, you become untouchable. Not because life stops testing you, but because your spirit no longer flinches under pressure. The world may shake, but you stay grounded. People may change, but your mission remains the same. That's what it means to live with inner peace and purpose, to walk so rooted in who you are that nothing outside of you can pull you off course. Inner peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of perspective. It's the ability to look at chaos and still choose calm, to face betrayal and still choose forgiveness, to see delay and still choose patience. You reach a point where you stop fighting the noise of the world because you realize the battle was never outside, it was always within. You stop reacting to every opinion, every slight, every distraction, because your attention has become sacred. When you have peace, you're not easily moved by things that used to steal your energy. You begin to understand that peace is not weakness, it's spiritual power under control. Anyone can rage, anyone can react, but it takes strength to stay still, to smile when misunderstood, and to trust when things make no sense. Becoming untouchable doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you start caring correctly. You stop pouring into people who only drain you. You stop investing time in what doesn't multiply purpose. You stop apologizing for choosing peace over chaos. The world will always demand your attention, but you decide who deserves access. You protect your mind like a fortress because your thoughts shape your future. And when you stop letting the wrong people and problems rent space in your head, you make room for divine strategy. Peace gives clarity, and clarity brings success. Most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they lack focus. They're too busy fighting battles that don't belong to them. You become untouchable when you learn to pick your battles wisely and walk away from what doesn't align with destiny. Purpose gives peace a mission. Without purpose, peace can turn into complacency. But when you combine inner calm with divine direction, you become unstoppable. Purpose gives your pain meaning. It transforms obstacles into opportunities and suffering into strength. When you know why you're here, you stop fearing the process. You understand that every challenge was designed to refine your assignment, not ruin it. You stop asking, why me, and start asking, what is this building in me? That's how the untouchable mindset is born, through the fire of endurance and the clarity of calling. You stop needing to prove yourself because your work speaks louder than your words. You stop needing approval because obedience has become your validation. When you live by purpose, you no longer chase success. Success starts chasing you. Inner peace makes you steady. Purpose makes you strategic. Together, they create a force that cannot be shaken. People who live from peace and purpose don't chase trends, they set them. They don't fear rejection, they trust redirection. They don't crumble under criticism, they stay focused on the vision. You can't manipulate someone who's anchored in purpose. You can't distract someone who's fueled by calling. You can't break someone who already found strength in surrender. That's why peace and purpose are the greatest weapons in a noisy, chaotic world. The moment you realize you don't have to respond to everything, you gain power over everything. Silence becomes your strategy. Stillness becomes your advantage. You start doing less but achieving more because your energy is no longer scattered. It's focused. It's intentional. It's divine. Becoming untouchable also means learning to rest without guilt. You understand that rest is not laziness, it's spiritual maintenance. Even God rested after creation. Rest is how you recharge the vessel so it can continue to carry the vision. People who lack peace work hard but make little progress because they're moving from exhaustion, not inspiration. But when your work flows from peace, it carries grace. Things start aligning without forcing. Doors open without begging. Opportunities find you because your spirit is in harmony with divine timing. That's the beauty of peace. It attracts what chaos repels. When you stay grounded in calm confidence, you draw to you the people, resources, and ideas meant for your purpose. You no longer chase, you align. Inner peace also teaches you emotional mastery. You stop giving temporary feelings permanent power. You learn to pause before you react, pray before you decide, and breathe before you speak. You understand that how you respond determines how far you rise. People who lack control of their emotions keep losing opportunities meant for their elevation. But when you master peace, you master response. You can sit in the middle of storms and still hear divine instruction. You can face betrayal and still keep your dignity. You can experience loss and still move with faith. That's untouchable. That's strength that can't be faked, because true maturity is measured by emotional discipline, not loud declarations. You don't need to announce your peace. People feel it when they're around you. Purpose gives you endurance. When you know your assignment, you stop quitting every time it gets hard. You stop comparing your journey to others because you know your path is custom built. You understand that purpose doesn't come with comfort, it comes with calling. And calling comes with challenges designed to test your readiness. The difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary is persistence. Untouchable people don't escape difficulty, they transform it into destiny. They use rejection as redirection, criticism as confirmation, and failure as feedback. They don't see obstacles as endings but as indicators of growth, because purpose will always stretch you before it blesses you. Becoming untouchable doesn't mean arrogance, it means awareness. You don't think you're better than anyone, you just know you're not built to stay average. You were created for purpose, not for people-pleasing. You stop seeking validation from the world because you already received affirmation from heaven. You no longer need applause because you're working for assignment. That's what gives you quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to prove, only to produce. People who live with peace and purpose don't talk about what they're going to do, they just do it. Their consistency becomes their language, and their results become their testimony. And finally, being untouchable means living in alignment. When your heart, mind, and spirit are aligned with divine will, there's no confusion, no fear, no hesitation. You wake up with clarity. You move with conviction. You speak with authority. You forgive quickly, love deeply, and focus fiercely. You no longer live for approval. You live for impact. That's the essence of being untouchable. Not that nothing touches you, but that nothing breaks you. You've been tested but not taken, shaken but not shattered, refined but not ruined. Because through every season, you learn to stay still, stay faithful, and stay focused. That's the kind of peace and purpose that makes you unstoppable, the kind that turns ordinary lives into extraordinary legacies.